Intermediate District 287 Board, starting at 6:33 p.m. on Thursday, March 10th. And I welcome everyone here tonight. It's good to see so many staff in attendance. And I'd like to invite all of our board members to introduce themselves and the district that they represent. Start with you, Michelle.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Michelle Kuntz, and I represent Orono Schools.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Johansson, and I represent Wayzata Public Schools.
Good evening. Ruthie Dallas, representing Brooklyn Center Community Schools.
And my name is Shannon Andreessen. I represent Hopkins Public Schools.
And Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
Francesca Pagan Umar from Eden Prairie Public Schools.
Thank you all. And just for everyone's information, anyone here tonight or watching this live, that I serve as the clerk for District 287. Our board chair and vice chair could not be here this evening, so I am stepping in. We will get the meeting started. I would like to invite Michelle Kuntz to read the mission of District 287.
The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And I would like to have a motion for the approval of the general meeting agenda.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So now we will move on to our open forum for community comments. Juanine, are there any comments before the board?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Then we can move on to approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And Casey?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. We'll call a vote for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any ayes?
Aye.
Nays? So moved, approved. The consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to the best part of the board meetings, in my opinion, sharing the success and recognition. The first one is above and beyond.
Thank you. And it's the best part of the agenda for me as well. And tonight our award winner is from the itinerant program. And I'd like to invite Melissa Broading, our Director of Special Ed and Student Sports Services, to introduce Anne-Marie Bailey.
Well, good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Lewandowski, members of the board, and colleagues. It is my absolute honor to celebrate and recognize Anne-Marie Bailey this evening. Anne-Marie is a speech-language pathologist and augmentative communication specialist with our itinerant program. She also leads our speech-language and AugCom team, providing support and guidance to this group. She serves students and teams within our 287 programs and also in our member districts. She's a strong advocate and innovative professional. I can say personally, it has been a gift to work alongside Anne-Marie for a number of years. Her depth of knowledge and drive to support our students and teams is evident in the work that she does every day. I can also say that colleagues of ours in our member districts also share deep appreciation for Anne-Marie. I've worked with many team members in your districts who have reached out for support with a unique question or a professional development need. And upon hearing that Anne-Marie will be coming out to support, respond with, "It's great to hear. Anne-Marie is wonderful to work with. We're so thankful." Anne-Marie was nominated for this award by her colleagues, and I'd like to share a little snippet of what was shared. Anne Marie is such an incredible leader for the speech language team. She is always looking out for everyone on the team, always up for a chat to help talk through questions, facilitates our meetings, and supports us however she can. Anne Marie, we are so grateful that you bring and share with us, and you are deeply respected. And I'm just so thankful that you are receiving this recognition tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Melissa, for those very kind words. And I do want to thank everybody for the nomination. If most of you don't know me, I really like to fly under the radar without a lot of attention, but this really does mean a lot to me, and I so appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne Marie. It's wonderful to get to know you just a little bit via the screen, and also to know that there are people like you throughout the district that are looking after our kids.
And I'd just like to add my thank you. When Anne Marie or Melissa said she looks out for others, that includes superintendents in the midst of our COVID and some of the challenges around testing and getting tests to people. I walked into my office and there was a wonderful little thank you note from her and a beautiful little book with appreciation for getting testing for all the staff. So she doesn't have any boundaries about whose well-being she's taking care of, because that warmed my heart that day. So I'm especially grateful, but she's well known in the district, and this is the kind of staff person that keeps a program going, and we couldn't be more grateful to have you work for District 287. So thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
And we have another wonderful success story tonight. I'm really pleased to introduce to the board John Fila. John is a long-term staff member in District 287, an instructor, and he flies under the radar a bit too, but I think what's noteworthy tonight is that he is been named a semifinalist for Minnesota Teacher of the Year, and I've got a good feel about this candidate for this year. John has worked in various positions at Intermediate District 287 for the past 11 years. In his current role, he teaches courses as an instructor for Northern Star Online, our flagship online school. He's experienced incredible different positions with exceptional students over the past year and a half with the pandemic's uncertainty. He really has always inspired me and many others with his vision for online learning and collaborative curriculum. He has been a fantastic resource during this time as we've had to pivot to remote learning. And I would say that as the state of Minnesota shifted to online learning over the past 2 years, many districts are using the resources or skills that really were started by John's vision and passion for students to access a virtual curriculum. While not everybody might know his name, he saw the reality that we are living right now several years ago and paved the way for people to be successful with online learning. I think it's also noteworthy to know that John has been a fierce advocate for many areas of equity in the district, and I won't go into all of them. In fact, maybe we'll have Juanine send the letter of recommendation I wrote for him. He's advanced equity quietly behind the scenes in many of his actions, and we're really grateful as a district to have him in our midst. So welcome, John, tonight, and congratulations on your status as a semifinalist.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandy, for that and taking the time to recognize my work. Good evening, board. I want to thank Sandy again just for her leadership and support in so many areas that made this scenario even possible for me. I'm really going to miss you. Your leadership has opened so many doors for things that are important to me and that I want to work on. I don't know if you remember this, but years back, I was working on some PD in our learning management system, and Sandy said to a large audience that John Fila is not so scary. And as silly as that is, it was really important at the time, and people started reaching out and then at some point would come back and inform me that indeed I was not that bad. So, but I wanted to say a few things, just to kind of sum up a long career here. I actually started my career as a last minute replacement for a teacher that was featured in the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. She was a nun that was teaching English at a private middle school and had a huge impact on the community and her students. And she passed away having already decorated her room for the classroom next year. So I taught in her space for over half the year before I was even allowed to make any changes. And in a lot of ways, I'm inextricably tied to her, though we've never met. The teachers, parents, and students I met that year going into the year would cry because when they looked at me, I wasn't somebody else. So that first year was an important realization for me that I'm a placeholder in the positions I serve in. And so I aspire to be worthy of the responsibility that I know I have. And so it wasn't just sharing my love for the subject area, I was becoming a part of people's lives. And when I went on to spend time working with populations that struggle, I came to this district because of John Voss and his vision for what things could be. And I knew that his vision in inspiring me and knowing 287 was a place I could grow allowed me to explore all kinds of ideas, participate ways I hadn't before. I've worked on coding on our learning management system. I've worked on curriculum projects, leadership roles, presented around the country and internationally, find ways to improve accessibility, proactively support our LGBTQ plus population in our Northern Star Online program. And then even really weird, unrelated things like helping the redesign team. I was on the redesign team for those bathrooms across the hall from you right now. And so one of the things I've learned in my time here is that nothing is unrelated, that we find these connections at anywhere and everywhere. And that's what leads to the innovations that we're known for in our district. So we figure out things for our learners so they can have a place of belonging and encouragement. And that's just been happening over and over and over again, especially these last few months and years at NSO during the pandemic. And I'm often struck by just how often it is that it's usually a small thing that takes someone that gets them back on track. Just a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of understanding, a little change to their calendar can be the difference between a semester credit and dropping out. And that people on the verge of that kind of despair don't always see that simple solution. So the staff at NSO is so incredible at helping people remove those obstacles. And then sometimes, as we experience too often in the district, that the challenges really are seemingly insurmountable because they're big. And I do want to acknowledge my colleagues at SEC for just the Herculean work they've done over the last few weeks to navigate something that there's just no training or easy path for. And they have my deepest sympathy, gratitude, and respect. I can't wait to see some of them tomorrow. And just showing up, we demonstrate care for those who need to know that they're supported. So this awards process has been a recognition of just how important it is to be flexible for our learners, creating settings and content that can meet needs of individuals so that they have a space to grow where they might have otherwise been told no. So I want to thank you, Sandy. I want to thank the board and everyone else in attendance for the recognition here in this time tonight, for allowing me to say a few words. The work that you do in that room helps lighten the load of others as well. So you set the groundwork for everything, and I thank you.
I have to applaud that. John Fila, I have to say, the buck stops here. You are a special human being, sir. There are so many people who get into education for so many different reasons, but clearly your experiences continue to renew your reasons and your commitment. I'm so honored to be on the board of a district you work in.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
Anyone else have any comments? Questions?
I think I just want, and I know the board does too, wish you the best of luck in the coming days. I'm holding that early May date just in case I need to be at a banquet. So hoping that you enjoy the rest of the process. And I know it's very exciting for you, but it's very exciting for us as well. So thanks again for representing us so well in this event, but also over the last number of years you've been with the district, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Congratulations.
And Madam Chair, if I might, I just want to add that we have a couple of guests here. I just want to welcome Marcy Dowd is at the table in the back. She's going to switch places with me here after a few board meetings, and we're just happy to have you here tonight, Marcy, and welcome. And please, board members, you'll have some time afterwards maybe to say hello to her. And then also, Director Sand, we actually have a second Robbinsdale board member here tonight. I wonder if you'd like to introduce her.
This is Sharon Brooks, our newest board member coming to listen to this meeting and discuss something afterwards. Hope to with you some potential prospects to be able to help our families through situations. So.
Great, great. And she's brought her colleague Julius with back there, right? Welcome, glad you're here.
Thank you. If you would like, we'll now be moving on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm really pleased tonight to have our lobbyist here for the intermediates. Valerie Doslin is here from Ewald and Associates. Valerie and I have worked together along with the intermediates for a number of years now. We're really grateful to have her as our lobbyist. She knows intermediates very well. And in St. Paul, that's a really important thing, especially this time of the year, explaining who are intermediates among the vast array of school districts over there right now, looking for a way to ask for various bills or support various bills that are coming forward. And so we're pleased to have her here tonight to talk a little bit about how the session is shaping up for intermediate school districts. Welcome, Valerie.
Great. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, members of the board. I, first of all, just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work with the intermediates for all these years. I've worked with Sandy since, I think, 2006. It's been just a great opportunity. I love the work that I get to do for the intermediates, and the superintendents have just been really excellent advocates at the legislature on intermediate issues. So I'm going to start by first, we're in the kind of middle of the legislative session. The first part of the process is the governor unveils his budget recommendations. And it was a really exciting unveiling of the recommendations for the intermediates. We had a significant number of proposals included in the budget, in his budget recommendations, thanks to the work that Sandy and the intermediates have done with Commissioner Mueller and the governor's office. I'll take a little credit, but Sandy has been has brought a large megaphone to her work working with the commissioner. And I think that is a result of, we see that in the governor's recommendations. So first of all, the governor includes 1 year of continued funding for the Innovative Mental Health Model grant that was provided to the intermediates and one of the service cooperatives back in 2017. We've come back every year to try to get it continued. We've had some success, but it just in the end never has made it through the finish line. So the governor has included 1 year of that in his budget recommendations. The governor also includes a proposal that last year we had worked on and got in both the House and Senate bills, and that was to allow extended time revenue for students who are in a residential treatment program. That got dropped off at the last minute in the very last waning days of session. The governor also includes specific full service community schools grants specifically for the intermediates. And we haven't seen the detailed language of that yet, but our understanding it's to follow the full service community schools model, but also to provide additional funding for professional development opportunities. And that's similar to a grant that the intermediates received back in 2016. The governor also includes some funding for those school districts with level 4 programs that did not receive commensurate share of federal COVID or CARES dollars, and the intermediates would qualify for that funding as well. Some of the other items that we're working on, the shooting of Jamari Rice at the South Education Center brought a renewed attention to intermediate issues at the legislature. And shortly after that, we heard from a lot of legislators about what can we do to help. And we've had a lot of different meetings with members on the education committees in both the House and Senate. And so we are advancing, even though this is in the governor's bill, we're advancing a specific bill to fund the innovative mental health model to make it permanent, as well as expand it to other school districts that have level 4 programs. There's also a proposal moving in the Senate to increase funding for Safe Schools revenue, which includes additional funding for the intermediates. And then we are also working on, we also support the efforts that are advancing in both the House and Senate to expand the Grow Your Own grant to increase the number of teachers of color. And then there's, part of my job is to watch the bills that are moving that either we might miss out on because they don't specifically list the intermediates, or there's just questions because they may not accurately reflect the way that the intermediates work. And so there are 2 bills. One is a bill by Representative Joachim to provide funding for paraprofessional training. And that is something the intermediates would qualify for funding for as well. And then lastly, there's a bill advancing on the House side by Representative Kelly Morrison to provide a specific categorical funding for mental health supports. We're not in there yet, but we are working to make sure that the intermediates and other cooperative school districts are added to that. And then I just might add, I don't know if Sandy shared, there was an overview in the Education Policy Committee a few weeks ago, and Sandy had the opportunity to come and testify, and there was some very powerful testimony about the needs of the intermediates, and I think that got a lot of legislators' attention as well. So throughout session, we're continuing to try to meet with legislators and advance the issues, and I'm feeling hopeful that we have a lot of attention on the intermediate issues, and certainly because of the shooting in South Education Center, it's been highlighted even more. Whether or not all that comes to fruition in the end is a much bigger question, and it's really tied to just the politics of the legislature between the governor and the House and the Senate, and kind of an overall budget. That's my brief summary. I'm available for questions about the intermediate issues, and if you have any questions about session, happy to answer those as well.
Great. Any comments or questions? Michelle? Kuntz?
Thank you. Hi, Valerie. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and I always say to Sandy, oh, where's Valerie? We need Valerie. So thank you for still being there, hanging in there. It can't have been very easy, given all the issues. But I just wanted to thank you for your service over these long years and your energy, especially presenting to us. And I'm hoping that we can get back to the Capitol sometime, meet people in person.
Yes, I can add some insights onto that. The Capitol is slowly starting to open. On the Senate side, the building is open. People can attend committee hearings in public. The offices are now open. The House is opening a little more slowly. The offices are still closed, but on Monday, March 21st, the offices will be open 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And legislators and staff will be in the building again, and the public is free to come to the state office building. And then committee hearings will continue to be remotely in the House, although that could change as we get closer towards the end of session, maybe with conference committee process. But usually by the end of session, legislators are tired of seeing lobbyists, and I've been at the Capitol the last 4 or 5 days of session on Mondays and Thursdays, and they're ecstatic to see us again. So I feel a renewed energy to do my work. Certainly, COVID has brought a lot of challenges, not unexpectedly, in how the legislature works, and our work has been done by a Zoom screen, which, having relationships with legislators has been challenging because, there's freshman legislators who've never met any of us in person. They've only met lobbyists remotely. They're not used to seeing you in committee hearing rooms. You don't get that one-on-one collegial conversations, in the hallway or by the chambers that normally happen. So I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to operate more how we used to soon. And thank you for your kind words.
Oh, thank you.
Sam?
Are you able to collaborate with AMSD or MSBA to help push for this funding in the legislature as well?
Yes, well, all the intermediates are members of AMSD, and I work very closely with all of my education counterparts at AMSD, MSBA, the lobbyists for Minneapolis and St. Paul. We affectionately refer to ourselves as the cartel. We all get along and we all work very well together, and certainly intermediate issues are at the top of mind for MASA, the School Superintendents Association, as well as the AMSD.
Okay. Because these are very important issues and fully support it. I think as us as member districts as well, for those of us that do have LACs, that we can advocate for these same issues there as well. Because I think the more of us that speak up on this, the more attention it'll get at the legislature. And I plan to definitely at Robbinsdale.
Thank you.
Sorry, Shannon. A quick follow-up, if you don't mind. Yeah, Valerie, I knew I forgot something. With the redistricting that's happened, how is that affecting your work?
Well, right now it's not affecting our work because, we still are working with the legislators in their current seats, but there will be a colossal change in the legislature next year. There were already quite a few retirements, but the redistricting has brought about a lot more retirements. And then there's a lot of members in the House that are moving to the Senate. And so it's going, I can't remember the total number, but I think we have at least 30 retirements already. And then there's a number of legislators who are moving over to the Senate. And then most notably, a couple of members that we are very familiar working with in the education area is Representative Jim Dabney from Minneapolis, who's the chair of the Education Finance Committee, is retiring. Representative Sandra Erickson, who's the Republican lead on the policy committee, is retiring. And then Senator Chuck Uygur, who's a minority lead on the Education Finance Committee in the Senate, and he's retiring. So there's going to be a lot of new faces in the education world. This is the largest number of retirements and shift in that building that I've experienced, and I've been around for 25, 26 years.
Crazy. Thank you.
Will be a different landscape, definitely.
For sure.
I just had a quick follow-up question about the mental health supports bill. Was that to create a dedicated revenue stream?
Yes.
Oh, great. We've been lobbying for that for a long time in Hopkins, so I'm excited to hear that. And is there information about that on the supporting documents that?
No, but I can certainly provide that information.
That would be great.
I can send the bill link to Sandy again. And just note, right now, the way the language is drafted does not include cooperative units. I don't believe that was an intentional oversight. We just always have to be right in front of legislators when an idea comes up and say, you can't forget the cooperatives.
Right.
So other than the intermediates, but like service co-ops, special education districts, et cetera. So we're working to get that added.
Great. Thank you. That was all I had.
And I would say Valerie is masterful in slipping herself in front of a legislator and say, pardon me, but you forgot the intermediate. So we're grateful for that skill she's built up on our behalf. And also just a reminder that we are getting deeper into the session, and we'll send a follow-up email to you just summarizing again maybe some of the key messages, particularly if you have a legislator in your area that's on the education committees. It would be really helpful for you to reach out and just represent us and advocate for us on some of the key things that Valerie summarized, if you would, please. All right. Thank you so much for coming, Valerie. Again, we really appreciate your work, and we'll just plow through to the end of the session and hope for the best here. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Board members, next up on my report is a resolution of support for both the Robbinsdale Public Schools and St. Louis Park Public Schools. The last meeting, you heard Director Sant and Casey talk about some of the situations that have occurred in their district. Unfortunately, it seems like a week doesn't go by without hearing of additional reasons why these kind of resolutions and efforts are important. It's important to us for many reasons, and responding to that request for a resolution of support, there's been a draft in your packet, and Radius Guest and Ann Becker are here to present that. And we would like it read tonight too, at a certain point, Radius, if you would.
Greetings, Chair Andreessen, 287 board members, Superintendent Lewandowski, and 287 staff and friends. As a former track and field athlete, I was disgusted with the racial bullying and demoting behavior that took place on the field of play during a recent high school competition. I was thrilled when Director Sant asked 287 to introduce a resolution to express our opinion about the true spirit of sportsmanship and support Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park school districts. It was an honor to collaborate with my esteemed colleague Ann Becker, our general counsel, in the design of a resolution condemning racist words and actions, which we submit for your consideration and approval tonight. I don't have the resolution in front of me.
I would like to, are we gonna open it up for discussion, or do you want us to read it?
I think read it and maybe move it.
I have it in front of me now.
Okay,
Okay.
or I can do it too, I have it too, it's up to you. You should probably read it, you worked on it.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm good, thank you. Whereas all persons deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and to be free from discriminatory and/or harassing behavior in all areas of their lives, including the athletic contests. And whereas there have been several recent events in Minnesota schools that have involved student and adult fans of one team using racial slurs against the members of another team. And whereas some of those events have occurred between New Prague Public Schools fans and teams from our member districts, Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park Public Schools. And whereas because the popularity of sports has a wide reach into many demographics, sports have a unique potential to steer the conversation around discrimination and racism. And whereas racism in sports must be combated and unequivocally condemned, and whereas society and some schools clearly have a long way to go in achieving the idea of an equitable playing field for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Intermediate District 287 condemns all hateful speech and systemic racism directed at Black, Indigenous, and bodies of culture or people of color, condemns all manifestations or expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, scapegoating, and ethnic and racial intolerance, supports educating students participating in interscholastic and other extracurricular activities about bullying, racial microaggressions, hazing prevention, and tips for positive online interactions and conduct. Supports educating parents of students participating in interscholastic and other extracurricular activities about types of abuse and misconduct in these activities with guidance on fostering positive and safe experiences for all students. And finally, supports and applauds the decision of the Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park school districts to cease participation in athletic competitions with New Prague area schools for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion from my board colleagues?
Chair, I think we need a motion in a second before we do a discussion.
Oh, do we? Okay. So is there a motion?
I so move. that
Second.
we Approve.
Okay. Any discussion? There we go.
I'd just like to say thank you, and we're really grateful for the support that we've felt from this group and from other members of your districts who have been supportive of our students and our staff as we, and Robbinsdale kind of went out on a limb here to make a statement about what this means to our students and to our community, and what it's going to take to hold this place and other places where this happens accountable. It's not just about a one-day fix or one disciplinary action. It's a systemic accountability. So we're really grateful for this show of support.
Director Sand?
I'd also like to thank administration of 287 and Ms. Guess and Ms. Becker for all their hard work to write this for us in collaboration with Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park. Being a member district, we truly appreciate your support and to condemning racist behavior at sporting events in school in general. And we really thank you.
I wanted to say that having read about what had occurred, it is just so disgusting that we are here in 2022 and that our state of Minnesota has to have this horrible tarnished blemish on us because of the behavior of some very embarrassing, low down, not only students, but staff who clearly have failed to properly educate their students on proper behavior and citizenship. I support this. I'm glad that we're making this motion. I think, though, that as a society greater than just our district or the Robbinsdale district or New Prague or St. Louis Park or any of our districts, this really truly is a system-wide problem. And there isn't a place in our nation right now we can go where we can say we have cured this problem of racism and bigotry. And while these motions are very important, much more important than this is that our schools are somewhat responsible for teaching these students, but really at the end of the day, each and every resident, every citizen, every person who lives in our district and in every district in our nation, they play a role in this. These children and the parents in the stands, they didn't create this behavior out of nowhere. This wasn't something that they came up with. This is something that has been taught for as long as this country has been a country and even since beforehand. And it's going to take a lot more than motions to undo it. However, I think this is a very essential first start, and I really applaud our school board for considering it, because right now, very sadly and unfortunately, we coexist next to districts whose boards won't even consider it. So thank you, Sam, for bringing this forward. Thank you, Radius, for writing on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say too, kind of echoing some of the things that have been said. We're hearing about the hockey tournaments this week, right, or today, and other things. And so I think underscoring the importance of our support, naming Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park, but really knowing that District 287 and each one of our member districts really support the students in all of the districts, whether they're named in this resolution or not. And just thanking Radius and Ann and everyone at 287 for the work that we're doing to address systemic racism on a daily basis and in our process, and just really committed to continuing that work and that focus as my heart goes out to all of the students and the families that are being affected by this today and hope.
Thank you. Ruthie.
I want to thank everyone too that worked on this resolution. It's so important to take this action. And I'm also wondering about New Prague. Has any action been taken from them as far as, anything being done or put out to the community or school districts? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm knowledgeable enough to state that, Ruthie.
I know that
I know that their superintendent has been in touch with our superintendent and some of our staff and with their staff. So I don't know like what conclusion that has come to yet, or if it has come to any conclusion yet, but they have been in touch with our staff. And I don't know about Robbinsdale, maybe the same there.
Sam?
I wish, unfortunately, I can't say the same. Some staff there were in touch with our superintendent when it initially happened with the basketball game. But from what I know, their superintendent hasn't gotten in contact with our superintendent yet.
I do know that the Minnesota State High School League has been pressured and advocated to get into more discussions with schools like New Prague. And Hopkins passed at our last board meeting a very similar resolution. But to your point, Director Johansson, broad and statewide, not specific to incidents, because Hopkins has also had some unfortunate things happen. And I, as a parent of students in that district, feel very proud that our students have taken lead in deciding how they want to handle it and have done a fantastic job leading and standing strong in their convictions. So I think that there's a lot of space in which we can advocate as community leaders and as people who care about what kind of experiences children in our state have.
I definitely agree. And their community should be looking at this very intensely and taking some action. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that their sports program is going to be feeling some impacts from this. Yes.
Since this all happened when I was gone and I wasn't keeping track of what was happening here when I was helping my mother, it occurs to me that we always talk about what hat are we wearing, or maybe we don't always anymore, but that was the thing. Are we wearing the 287 hat? Are we wearing our home district hat? And I just wondered if we have signed this resolution, which I support way, way, way up there. Is it implicit that our member districts support this as well? Have all our member districts taken, without, I don't want to point fingers or anything, I'm just really curious how that affects, I mean, it would be powerful if we could now say it's 287, but that includes our member district.
Yeah, I think I can see why you would say that. I think this resolution applies to this board on behalf of District 287. I think any individual district would need to do that independent. But this is a collective membership for 287 that represents the resolution.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yep.
I do have a question around the specificity of the language. I don't know. I appreciate all the work that went into this resolution. It's very strong, and I wish I had read it before the Hopkins resolution because I would have taken some really amazing pieces out of it. But I'm wondering, since this is part of the discussion, do we want to make it more global while also, I like the touch of the naming the districts and the specific incidences, but do we want to maybe include some language around and all districts across the state of Minnesota or something along those lines? Just an idea.
I could see room for expanding some of the discrimination that it would condemn to include other kinds of bigotries, perhaps. I know that in these particular instances, it was very focused. It was definitely race-based bigotry that was being displayed.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate. I guess I'm just wondering if, I appreciate the specificity of Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park being named and New Prague, but do we also want to expand that into saying and across districts across the state, or, you know,
I see what you mean. So like, so where it says some of these events occurred between New Prague public school fans and teams from our member districts, Robinsondale and St. I think that's, yeah, Robinsondale and St. Louis Park Public Schools. Because that's naming the incidents, but you're saying like if we could somehow expand somewhere to be clear that we're not just condemning it in these instances where, and where these locations, but.
right. To your point, it's a global problem. It's statewide. It's
Yeah.
happening in other member districts. So just wondering if we wanted to expand it or if we feel like the specificity, because I go both ways. Like once you get global, it gets watered down. So just throwing it out there.
Radius, since you worked on this, what are your thoughts about that? Do you see a place in here? I don't know if the whereas statement is the right place because it's recanting events, but is there a place on here to maybe inject us, if everybody else would be on board with that, a statement about this condemnation is not limited to these districts or this location or something?
I think what I want to do is just to bring some understanding in terms of why, and Beck might add to this conversation as well. But the Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park schools were identified because they were the ones that were experiencing the discrimination or the cultural assaults, if you would.
I would leave that in there because that's what happened. Yeah.
So that needs to remain there. So it's there
definitely
in the
that
whereas
stays.
as well as in the therefore be it resolved. And again, it's the example because they were the ones who chose not to participate or engage with those that school any longer.
Yeah, I don't think the whereas statement should be the place for it. I was wondering if there was somewhere else to expand in keeping with what Director Anderson was saying.
Yeah, I guess I have mixed feelings about it. I think that there's a value and importance to say we have member districts and a very specific event happened to our member districts and we want to mark that. And so I think we can remake the motion and do all of that to add something. I'm a little cautious about it. I think if we were to add something potentially at bullet point number 5 under the be it resolved, if we say supports and applauds the decision of the Robbinsdale and St. Louis Park School District or any future affected, district to cease participating. But again, I guess I worry, not that I don't want to support other districts, but I think there is some power in the solidarity and in this statement to our member districts, and I'd be cautious.
Yeah, I actually think that makes a lot of sense. I agree.
Something else for your consideration is that perhaps at the very end of the document, there's an opportunity for signatures to be placed there. And that's an opportunity for all of you to put your signature and list your school districts on the document to indicate your support of the resolution.
Shannon, I think Anne is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ann Becker has her hand up.
I don't.
Up on
the right
the screen.
Oh, hi, yes, Anne, sorry. I'm like, I don't know who you're pointing to.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think Radius and I had wanted to have a nice combination of global and specific. And so the first 4 points under now therefore be it resolved are global, and the 5th is very specific.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anne. Well, I think now the discussion is ended unless anyone else had any comments or thoughts. Thank you again, Radius and Anne, for this. And we've had a motion and a second. So now we do a roll call vote, which I will turn over to Ruthie Dallas, who's serving as clerk.
Okay, Shannon Andreessen.
Aye.
Krista's absent. And Casey?
Aye.
Ruthie Dallas, aye. Sarah Johansson?
Yes.
Michelle Coons?
Aye.
Heidi Marty is not here. Jackie, Regina, Francesca Pagan,
Aye.
Sam Sand.
Yes.
We have, do I tell you how many or?
I think all in favor, motion passes. Thank you for that again. Moving on to our Business Services and Labor Relations Report. I don't think I have who's presenting.
Yeah, we'd like to invite May up to introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, board chair and board members. We have with us tonight Rich Ragetz and Chris. You just tell me how to pronounce this too. Sihos from Ideal Energies to talk about putting solar on and having solar energy for our school districts. So we'll hand it over to them. We're trying to, the PowerPoint that the slides they'll be presenting off of are in your board packet. So if you want to open that window, you'll be able to see it that way.
Is there something I can click to make screens go? Is there like a clicker? Or are you my clicker?
Oh, so
Screen?
do you want me to present?
Well, no, I don't need that. We can just talk. I'm happy to do it that way.
Because it was sent to us as a PDF.
There you go.
Not a PowerPoint.
Okay, that's
So,
you should be up there to talk.
yeah, you should still talk.
Okay, sure. All right, well, let me just tell you generally what we're doing. The packet is in there. We're Ideal Energies. We're a solar company. We're Minnesota-based. We've been doing solar for about the last 12 years in the state of Minnesota. I'm going to take this off, if that's okay. All right, wonderful. Okay. We've done about 400 projects or 450 projects in the States. We're a company that does everything in solar. So we're a company that develops solar, we build solar, we install solar, we finance solar, we operate solar for all of our customers. And we do a lot of business with school districts. We've done about 140 projects with schools in the state of Minnesota, stretching across about 30 or so districts. I'll share with you that amongst a lot of the districts here, we've had the opportunity to work with you. So we've worked with Richfield schools for about 10 years. We've done the whole Osseo school district. We've done probably a whole bunch of projects with the Orono school district. We've done Eden Prairie School District and a series of other ones. And if I missed you, I apologize. I think we've done Brooklyn Center as well, which I think is a member of your group here. What we're talking about doing is installing solar on 4 buildings here in the district. We've got 4 of them identified. One is North Education Center. The second one is Ann Bremner Education Center. The third one is West Education Center. And the fourth one is the district office. And when we put solar arrays on buildings, what we're doing is we're putting solar arrays on, these are for rooftop mounted solar arrays. They sit on top of the buildings, and what they're doing is they're producing energy, and the energy that's produced from them is connected to your buildings. So what's going to happen is when your building has a demand for energy, it's first going to use the energy from your building, from your roof, from your solar array, and then it's going to require energy from the utility. So when we put these solar arrays on building, you don't have to buy the energy from the utility anymore because it comes for your roof. And so when we do projects, the way we set them up is kind of unique. Usually when you do solar, there's some third party that owns something forever and you never get any net economic benefit out of it. And so Rich and I decided when we put together our business to kind of change the way solar is done and create a positive environment for schools and the public sector to work. And so what our business model is a little different. With solar arrays with us, we install solar arrays, design them, engineer them, install them, and we put them on your buildings, and you own them day one. So there's never any need to buy them from us at some other date. We pay for them completely. The only thing that happens is we have these solar arrays on your building, so we pay for them and we wait to be paid. And the way we get paid over time is by collecting payments for the energy that is coming from your roof instead of coming from the grid. And when that energy comes from your roof, we're able to provide it to you at a lesser expense than what you're paying the utility for. And that's somewhere between 20 and 30%, depending upon the utility programs that we're leveraging and things like that. After 20 years, where your transaction and expenses to us for the energy are gone, and all the energy that comes from your roof is for free. And the equipment that goes up on your roof is the best equipment made in the world. It's the same equipment we've installed at 140 other schools and buildings. It has a 25-year warranty on it, which well exceeds the payment on that as well. When we do projects, they're set up like this. So I have an example in the packet for you, but let me just summarize
What
it real
page is
simply.
it on the packet? Because we have them in front of us.
I'm on page, shoot, I don't know if I have page numbers. 11? Thank you. Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I'm looking, thank you. Yeah, so
Thank you.
the way this works is something like this. On the left-hand column, when you see the first thing, that's the amount you're not going to have to pay the utility because you're not buying the energy from them. Okay? And when we set up our transactions, you own the solar array and then we operate it for you. So we have a lease in place that lets us do that. And we pay you rent so we can access your building. That just kind of makes the math work. So you get a little bit of revenue there. So the expense, the savings that you're going to have is about $67,000. And then the payment to us for the energy is the amount that's a fraction of that. So that's where you save the 20 to 30%. And then from there, you own the solar array, so you have to insure it. So what happens is by putting a solar array on the building is you're paying about 20 to 30% less for the energy that you're buying from the utility. And what that means is your expense for the district is reduced and you can use money for things like books and teachers and things that are better spent on than electricity. I'm going to flip through the next page because it talks about, in the state of Minnesota, we were talking a little bit about lobbyists and rules, and we're kind of active in that space. And there's been some legislation that we've been very active in.
Now he's on page
15. I scooted ahead. Sorry. Used to do it with a PowerPoint, the clicker. But now I'm scooting ahead because it's kind of hard to talk about some of the pages. But in the state of Minnesota, they had some legislation last year where they said solar for schools is a great thing. And we were really active in putting together that program. And then when Excel put it together, they kind of kept all the benefits for themselves. So we were very active in challenging in Excel. At the end of the day, we wanted both the programs that they were creating an incentive to be available with the status quo. Excel tried to swap it around and said in lieu of. And so the Solar for Schools program doesn't provide much benefit for a typical school. It provides enormous benefits for low-income schools, but not for a standard school. So while we were really hopeful that we'd be able to do even better than 20 or 30%, we can't because the program didn't work out. We got both, we just got one. Okay. So what I'm trying to point out is on page, whatever it is that says on the top, CV credit only, this is the program that works for the district here. And it's outside of the Solar for Schools program. Okay, it's not the Solar for Schools program. And so irrespective of whether or not whichever program is used, the legislation that was put together tried to promote some things for schools, which were important, and we believe they're important too. So one thing that the legislation required was that schools have an education program. We've been doing that for the last 6 or 7 years. So we have two programs that we have. One is 5th grade, one is STEM, and they're both designed to meet current standards, et cetera, on infinitum. And we provide those to all the schools we work with so you can integrate that into your classroom, and we're here to help with that. The second part of the rule says that you have to have monitoring in your classroom or in a public place, and we already do that too. So, so much easier with a presentation. So, so what? No, we're all good.
Okay, so now he's on page,
Right, so I'm trying to now flip through to the next page here, where I'm talking about our curriculum, where we have our curriculum for you. I'm flipping through, I should have lifted this up the whole time. Now I'm flipping through and I'm sharing with you that with every solar array that we have, there's online monitoring that comes with it. And this provides a lot of neat information, which is used in the classrooms. It's available on a monitor. It talks about environmental benefits and energy benefits and things like that. And then last part here, I had kind of the steps to go through to get us to the finish line here. I think we've already provided May with some of the paperwork that we've used at all the other districts we've worked with. The next steps would be working with you to get your authorization to proceed on the projects. We go forward and do all the work. We engineer them. When we're done, we'll build them. I would anticipate if we started now that we'd be able to get the solar arrays up and running by the end of the year, like we have for other districts. We just did like Lakeville schools and did about 2 times as much as we're doing here. We got that done in about 7 or 8 months. So we're able to kind of execute real quickly here. But our goal is really simple. We're a business that's here, and we're dedicated to working with the public sector and schools to try to take solar transactions, put them on buildings, save money for school districts, and teach kids. And that's what we're all about.
Thank you.
Happy to answer questions or whatever you'd like.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Yes.
First, thank you so much for doing this presentation and thank you for getting into this line of work. It's very good for the environment. It's also really great for school districts to save money, as you said, on electricity and put it into things that we need.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the picture of the, it says how on-site solar works, and then there's a picture of a gray roof with blue panels as the number 1 over those.
On the back, yes.
Yeah, and it looks like they have, I'm not technically aware of what they're called, but like table legs or something on them. So
Go ahead.
how do the panels attach to the roof, or do they just sit on the roof?
Okay, I'm going to bring you to page 3, which has a picture. So this is the Orno Discovery Center. And that shows you exactly what it looks like. So the solar panels are, I don't know, about 3 by 4. And what they are is they sit on trays, so they're connected in the corners with aluminum trays. And those trays lay on your roof. And then those trays ultimately have like a rubber pad underneath them. So the weight of the solar panels on top of that tray, it just stays in place with gravity. And the way it does it is those trays have a certain amount of cement blocks that are placed on them to make sure that it stays down. So, you know, they're weighed down just enough to make sure that the wind doesn't ever lift them off the roof. And then it's very rare that we have to do any like physical attachments. And if we do, we have to do it in like a corner because the wind might take it and rip it up. But when we do this work, we have structural engineers, multiple engineers. We have electrical engineers, structural engineers, master electricians. Our 2 structural engineer roles are, one is to evaluate the building to make sure that the weight of the solar array in the building are appropriately measured so the building meets structural code and there's no issues. And the second one is to evaluate the structural solar array itself and make sure that the right amount is on each one of those trays to hold it in place. So those 2 things converge together when we do that. Once we figure out what will fit, we look at the building and see how much it can consume. The building, you always consume more than your roof will fit. So you're always just displacing a portion of your electricity.
So there's not, so these aren't the kind that when salespeople were coming around to people's homes some years ago, where they drill through your roof, and
We don't want to do that.
so the chance of the
So like as an
just
example.
eroding the roof
so
and causing leaks is lower.
For the Osseo district, right now, we're doing 6 very large projects. They're about 3 times what you see right here. And 5 of those projects, we have no hard attachments required at all. And on one of them, and one side, we have like 100 attachments, which is not a big deal. What we do is we use a certified roofer that's the same roofer that works with your building, and they put in the work to make sure that it's held in place. So we always use certified roofers when we do that, but it's kind of rare. It happens when your building is about 40 feet up and the wind will blow on it, and then it's subject to different structural requirements and stuff.
Okay, yeah, we don't have anything that high here.
Yeah, but we're very mindful of that. I even have all the materials in my bag if you wanted to see them. But I'll save that for later unless you're
That
really
might be nice. I'd like to see a panel.
super jazzed about it.
My second question was, so after the panels absorb the sun's energy, they put it out to the grid or out toward to,
Last page picture.
Okay.
We're gonna go back to this presentation. So this is that thing where you were saying how solar works. So usually when you see solar arrays like like in the fields that are all connected, those are connected to the utility lines, and they put energy in the utility lines, and they're available for everybody. When you do this stuff, we're called behind the meter. So if you look at this picture right here, this is showing you a building. There's a solar array on top of it. This is a ground mounted system. Put an extra that. We're not doing that with you.
Okay.
So now what happens is the solar panels on this building make electricity. That's DC power. It goes into something called an inverter. It makes it into 3-phase power. Okay. That inverter is now connected to your building switchgear, the electrical room, and the electrons from that solar array go directly into your electrical room. And the electrical's lazy. It wants the closest electron. So it takes the electron from your roof and it uses it before it has to buy it from the utility.
okay. So it's not like the solar parks where it goes out to the grid first, so it comes to us.
If there's any
first.
excess energy that's made,
That goes out to the grid.
that will go out to the grid, but then they count it. And then those units that you send out to the grid, next time you get a bill, they said, you have units you're going to offset your bill with.
Okay.
So they credit those units of energy that are produced. It's called net metering. And you get to wait an entire year and you can accrue them and then apply them back and always use that. So if you make a little extra energy in 1 month, it's available for the next one to offset your bill.
Okay,
Not
so
just-
any units that we use will pay a small portion, we'll pay a lesser price to your
Yes.
company than we would have to
Yes.
an energy company. And anything that goes out to the grid, the energy company will hold as a credit for us.
Holds a credit so it can apply it to your next bill. That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all that.
And then what's neat is the last thing I want to show you is kind of like what the solar array will do for the amount of energy that your building consumes. So I have a nice little table here that shows you, I'll tell you what page it is, so I can figure it out. Maybe it's the one with the table on it. Shows the buildings here. There you go. So here you can kind of see on this table right here, which is energy offset, you'll see the amount of energy that you use and the percentage of it that would pretty much come from the solar.
Yeah.
So you can see like with Ann Bremer that we're able to put a large solar array and displace most of it, but the other ones, your roofs aren't big enough.
Okay.
If you had a bigger roof, you could do more solar, but you can't. We're always limited by the physical constraints of the area we get to work in. So Ann Bremer doesn't use that much energy relative to its size compared to the other buildings is what that means.
And these are the estimates based on the sizes of the roofs?
Yeah. Yeah. That's when you look at the pictures that we have. That shows you the amount of roof that would be covered by the solar panel. So when I scrolled through and I said we're doing, and I didn't know you had an actual copy of this, and I thought I was just talking with words. These are the pictures. So here's the roof area that's covered with North Education. Let's scroll through and look and see that we've got Ann Bremner here. Now there are areas of the roof that we're not using, and we don't use them on purpose because when we do the work, we marry up the solar arrays with roofs that are new. So we don't put them on old roofs. We're mindful of that. And so you can look at West Education Center. We didn't put them on there because there's area of the roofs that aren't new.
Okay.
So we're mindful of strategically picking the right size, not putting stuff where it doesn't belong, and kind of getting that right balance.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. By the way, thank you for everything you do. I mean, swear to God, thank you so much. It's amazing to sit here and listen to all the work you have to do to make things work together. It's really compelling.
Oh, we have a couple more questions. You didn't get off the hook that easy. We got some more.
Bring it on.
I I see that there's a 25-year warranty on the panels. Is that just the panels or is that the whole rig and the inverters?
So the inverters have a 12-year warranty on them. There's a slight expense for replacing those when they expire. The rest of the equipment is all 25 years. And solar panels, just to give you an idea, like the warranties in solar, now that they have solar out there for so long, reason the best panels literally manufactured in the world, the warranties are now being extended to 30 years and 35 years on this stuff because it does last that long. So it's manufactured, it just sits there and it doesn't do anything.
So in sort, we're talking about like a 20-year kind of contract with you all. What kind of expectation would we have for replacing or upgrading inverters in that 20 years? I said, you said they had a 12-year warranty.
Yeah, that would be a one-time event
Okay.
that would happen anywhere from 12 to 20 years from now in the life of the system. And it would be probably about 1/3 of a year's savings. It's relatively small relative to what we're talking about here.
Thank you.
Director Sand.
Going back to the solar panels and the 25-year warranty, I saw in the analysis it went down to 40. What's the typical lifespan of a solar panel?
Well, solar panels and solar arrays have been out there for 40 years. So when everybody in the solar industry models out what solar will do now, it's done over a 40-year period. It's just how it's done. It's because solar does last that long and it's predicted to last that long at this point. A while back when solar was getting started 20, 30 years ago, people didn't understand the longevity of the panels, the right construction techniques and stuff like that. So now solar's everywhere. And the panels that are made are bulletproof when you use the right ones. And they just work that long. So, you know, warranties are extended 25 years because they don't expect it to fail at 25 years. They expect them to last a lot longer. So 40 years is realistic, being sincere when I say that.
Very good. Yeah. And then as far as maintenance or to clean
That's
up.
us.
Okay.
Yep. We're here for the whole 20 years doing that. We have a full operations management company that specifically monitors every single solar array we have, make sure that they're operating, and then we render them and fix them if they're not. That's part of our responsibilities in this.
Got it.
Yes.
Then my last question is for Executive Director Hawkins. I know this got put off last year because our roofs wouldn't be able to sustain it. I assume now that all the roofs on these buildings that were brought forth to us can sustain the new weight of the solar panels?
Yeah, we anticipate so. That's what our structural engineer, we did a preliminary work with it on. So when we do all the work, we talk about what we're going to do. And then if you talk to anybody, we always do what we say we're going to do. But we always look at what we can do, and then we always refine what we do to match up with actual engineering when we're done. So what you'll see is I tell you, you're going to have a solar array that's 208 kilowatts on this building. That will vary up and down a little bit depending upon final engineering. And if we can put more on, it's just pro rata. If we put less on, it's pro rata. But we have to engineer it to find out the exact size. And I'll tell you that with all the buildings that we've done, we've only run across about 5 or 10 out of about 500 that we've had structural problems with, because the weight of these solar panels is about 3 or 4 pounds per square foot, and that's it. And it's very rare. If you know the right kind of racking and right equipment to use, you don't have to put penetrations in roof. It's kind of the exception rather than the rule. So we like to not put roof penetrations through because you'll be mad at me if one leaks someday, and I don't ever want to be in that spot. So we strategically duck away from that kind of arrangement as much as we can, but it does happen sometimes and we just minimize it. So think about the experience I mentioned with, you know, Osseo, where 5 of their 6 projects were like this, didn't require any and one required some. That's the kind of outcome that I would expect. And that one required one because that building was 45 feet in the up air and below was winding on it. You have a lot of low profile buildings that are not in high wind areas, so I don't expect any issues here at all. But that's why we do all the engineering, to make sure we've got it right. Yeah.
Any other questions? I did just have one quick question. I'm really excited about the curriculum and the monitoring dashboard. I can definitely see some kiddos getting way into that. And just wondering, with that curriculum, is it at all adapted for, you know, different learning styles, or is that something that the schools usually do
We give
after
it,
you give it to them?
we give it to you completely electronically too, as well.
Oh,
So the idea here is that when we're done, we give you media to mess with, which is tangible things, and we build out all the things. We have all the electronic media, so we have videos, presentations, all the things you can imagine. So you get to design your own curriculum to work that works for your schools, because I can't be in the business of trying to anticipate that, but I want to give you the tools to do it with. And so what we did is when we put together our stuff, we worked with some professional educators that build curriculums for schools to make sure that and she does it for Minnesota schools. So we work specifically to build our stuff so it meets all the standards. There are like the new standards and the old standards and that whole bit. We've got it all done. So it's not accredited, but it's been put together to meet all the standards that are out there in the present. And you won't find any solar education thing that's set up to do it like that. We did that specifically because when we said we wanted to teach kids, we meant it. So if we can deliver that to our schools, then, you know, we're standing behind what we say, and that's what we do. So.
Do you have any internship programs?
Well, I'd like to have a lot of them, but the honest truth is it's really hard to have interns because what we do runs kind of hard and kind of fast. And so it takes a lot of work to have an intern. And I'd love to have 100 of them, but it's kind of hard to be able to really keep them busy and engage them in a way where they can really learn and have a really fantastic environment to rely on, because we have to do a lot of things to keep our business running. So it's hard to have interns, but I have aspirations for having a lot of them, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Again, my last comment, thank you for everything you do. Honestly, parent, and I'm very appreciative of this whole world of schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now we'll turn it back to, oh, yes.
I was gonna ask the superintendent, I guess what is the timeline of, you know, to do something like this? I saw from his presentation, but I guess for us as a board, are we looking at sometime in the future to move something like this, or?
Great question, and I think May's ready to answer it.
So to finalize this, so this was the presentation tonight so that you would have some background information about what we're proposing. These agreements will come on the consent agenda on our March 24th meeting for the board to act on. We are in the process right now of publishing them in all the newspapers that we have to publish because it is a guaranteed energy savings agreement. It has to be published, right? So that's happening over between these two board meetings, and actually I think one went out today in a paper. So, and it's just letting everybody know that the board's planning to act on this on March 24th.
Just a clarifying question. So as an intermediate district, when you have to do a public notice, does it have to be in all of our papers?
Yes, it does.
Oh my goodness.
No, we better just take care of that.
Forget about managing interns.
That might be a LAC thing we can get started on. So now maybe, do you want to stay up there and so you can
grab my notes.
move on? We can move on to the financial report unless anyone else has any questions. Thank you again. Very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good evening, board and chair. The budget assumptions are the foundation on which the upcoming budget will be built. The board is presented with the assumptions and asked to approve them to provide guidance to the District 287 administration for the development of the 22-23 original budget. The assumptions are divided between those that relate to revenues and those that relate to expenditures. At the top of the assumptions document is information from any program withdrawals that member districts have indicated on their annual notification form. At this time, we've been notified that Robbinsdale is withdrawing instructional services for 2 care and treatment centers located within their district, and Brooklyn Center is withdrawing from occupational therapy itinerant services. This withdrawal information is required by state statute to be communicated to staff and is annually included in our budget assumptions. Some highlights from our revenue assumptions. So I'm not going to do an exhaustive list. You have them in front of you. I'm just going to do some highlights. So similar to your home districts, everything is based on projected enrollment. The big difference is that we rely on our member districts to provide us with their planned enrollments for the upcoming year. Due to the ongoing pandemic, right, there is more uncertainty than in prior years about what will enrollment look like next year. This is a balancing act, as if the planning number is too low, we won't have staff to take new referrals, which will lead to queues, which member districts have informed us they don't want. a queue. And if it's too high, the tuition billing cost will increase as the intermediate will have staff for more students than actually come. So it is a balancing act. We continually work with our member districts to finalize the projections. At this point, the projected enrollment that member districts have provided for setting 4 instructional is 455 ADMs. That is 40 lower than the projection for the 21-22 school year and 20 ADMs higher than the ADMs from the January monthly report. As I stated in the 21-22 revised budget presentation, seeing the changes in referrals that occurred last summer, instructional leaders did not staff to the projected enrollment for 21-22, and the revised budget reflected this with a $2.65 million decrease from the original budget in special education expenditures. The projected enrollment for ALC programs is also projected to be lower than our planned enrollment for 21-22 by 57 students. Due to decreased enrollment in the Early Learning Center, the childcare for our infants and toddlers of students, we will be closing the Early Learning Center at North Education Center. The Early Learning Center at South Education Center was closed in 2019. In summary, the revenue assumptions state that we will use the member district planning information times the state revenue allocations and existing member district approved fees with no changes to member fee rates to determine the revenues for each service provided by the intermediate district. We will also continue to advocate for ongoing funding for mental health and other strategic priorities. Now a few highlights from the budget or from the expenditure assumptions. Expenditures will be aligned and prioritized so as to promote the implementation of the strategic plan and the district's strategic priorities of student outcomes, racial equity, evidence-based instruction, trauma-sensitive and healing-centered practices, and employee well-being. Expenditure budgets will be aligned with revenue budgets, and budget reductions will be needed in some areas. The tiers, budgeting, and tuition billing ratios that were approved by the Special Education Directory Advisory Committee and the 287 School Board in 2019 will continue to be used to provide budget allocations for our special education programs. The district is working, as you heard earlier, with key legislators to identify funding sources to continue the therapeutic teaching model and other strategic priorities. However, as that legislation is unlikely to be known by the time the board approves the budget for the 22-23 school year, these areas will be represented or funded using the remaining strategic priorities fund balance in that original budget. Staffing expenditure assumptions. As staffing makes up 85% of a district's budget, these assumptions are key to planning each year's budget. Based on presentation that Michelle brought to you earlier, we will continue our recruitment and retention initiatives. Our staffing will be aligned with our tiers ratios. Our staffing for other programs and departments will be aligned to revenues. And our projections for staffing costs will be based on either settled contracts or if a contract is not settled on the board parameters for that group. The budget will be developed in keeping with the parameters of the board's fund balance policy. These are just a few highlights. The complete list is in your board packet. Are there any questions about the budget assumptions for the 22-23 school year?
This might not be for May though. What
Okay.
kind of impact on our students will the closing of the Early Learning Center at North have? Are there a lot of students who are using that in order to attend school?
Elizabeth, would you like to answer?
Right now, we have forced parenting students enrolled at our North Education Academy Center. Across those four students, their children, we have consistent attendance this year from 2 and 2 who have been pretty inconsistent. So we've seen over the years, and it follows the Hennepin County parenting teenage teens accessing our academy at North Education Center and our Early Learning Center. And honestly, both Osseo and Brooklyn Center offer childcare in their academies. So since the opening of those, that's made a tremendous difference on our north side. Sure, the impact will be there. I feel like at South Education Center, when we made this transition and our partnership with Mother Duck, it's worked well. Our parenting teams drop their children off at the child care center. They are then transported very close, within blocks, to South Education Center. And we continue to do the parenting classes and have that connection with not only the providers at the child care center, but with our teachers, counselors, social workers, and our parents. So we'll continue. Our vision is to have that same kind of partnership for our students.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just would like to remind everyone that is tuning in that we had a visit from our legislative lobbyist earlier and talked about priorities. And I think that we can all, when we start having budget conversations at a board table, we feel that need for advocacy around funding for education. We are constantly asked to make what I feel are impossible decisions due to the chronic underfunding of public education. And in particular, I think intermediates feel that pinch even more than our home districts. And so just a reminder to continue to speak to your legislators, to tell your stories, to advocate for your students. And in particular, right now, we're feeling like there's some movement around, in particular, funding for special education. So hopefully we can get some movement at the state level. Federal level would be ideal, right? But to continue to remind everyone that we are not making these decisions in a perfect world. So thank you for all your work. And with that, I would look for a motion to approve. I need to get the wording right? The budget assumptions for the 2022-23 school year as presented.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Michelle Coons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0 opposed, motion passes 6-0. Moving on. We are going to our board reports for once around the table. Anyone have anything they would like to share? Yes, Director
I
Casey.
do have something. I don't know how closely people follow other boards. Our board had 2 resignations since the first of the year. Both of them for personal reasons that were completely understandable. Nothing about our board, I don't think. I became the chair and 2 people resigned. So maybe that was it. Maybe it's me. I don't think so. I think it was. I think it was not. So we are now in the waiting period. We have made our appointments, and now there's a 30-day waiting period. If you haven't been through this process before, that's the part of the public process where the public can petition to recall an appointment. We don't expect anything like that to happen. So hopefully our new board members will be seated on April 12th at our next board, our first board meeting in April. And we're super excited to welcome our 2 new board members. One of them was actually encouraged to apply by Jen Bouchard from the Hopkins board. Shannon's calling on Hopkins. She is an attorney who works in the juvenile justice space, and she runs a nonprofit, and she is a restorative practitioner and It's going to be great to have her on the board. The other is a middle school teacher and has been a candidate for the Teacher of the Year and has worked on some state boards. So they both have board experience, which I'm like, whew, we need to have people who can kind of hit the ground running with a lot of budget things and other things happening right at the end of the year. So lots of change, but I think as I was driving here and I was thinking about this, I was thinking both of these folks, I don't want to leave 287, but if I ever do, I always say I'm not going to get hit by a bus. I'm going to decide to move to Tahiti. And when that happens, either of these two would be an amazing colleagues in 287. So I hope that they run in our special election and are with us for a long time.
Congratulations, Director Casey, for your board to gain two such valuable new board members.
We're feeling very fortunate. We had 9 applicants, and every single one of them would have been great. So it's wonderful to make a hard decision in that case.
It also sounds wonderful that your board has a consistent process that they reliably use instead of making on-the-fly decisions as they go.
It's they haven't used this process. We haven't had to use this process in a long time since before I was on the board, but we did try to keep it the same as the last time so that the community would be able to understand the same process. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Ruthie.
Hi, I just wanted to give kudos to our superintendent. Not Sandy, Brooklyn Center.
Oh.
Kudos to her.
But Sandy
as
too.
well.
Sandy too. Always kudos.
Charlie Baker was nominated and selected to be the Administrator of the Year for the state. And so that
Hey,
came out
congratulations.
last week and
Oh,
thought it was really great to see.
All right.
So you can send her notes or whatever.
Thank you. Does anyone have, anyone else have anything for once around the table? No. Does anyone have a report from AMSD? I can do one like twice removed.
I was not at the last one.
Yeah, I am never there. It's too early.
my home board, Eden Prairie, it's our director, Kim Ross, who attends those, not I. So I don't have one, but sorry.
Yeah, so you all know Steve, well, most of you know Steve Adams on the Hopkins School Board. He always goes and we're on the LAC together, so I get mine secondhand from him. But the Senate heard a suite of bills. Well, they actually didn't hear them because the leader wouldn't give them a hearing. But they were passed. A lot of them are simply, I think, viewed as campaign platforms for the upcoming election, but they are concerning for education. There's a parents' right bill, some other, I think, if you care about education concerning bills. So just a heads up to pay attention to that and how they move through. I doubt they will pass the House. And then there are also some really, very pro-education bills taking shape in the House. So if you want to pay attention to that, of course, things are getting laid over a lot for consideration, which is how things go now. But just to keep an ear out and advocate for those bills that you think will be really impactful for our students.
And I was going to add to that, there was an item on the agenda to deal with the resolution that we passed tonight in regards to the New Prague incident. And Francesca might want to say a little about that. I don't know whether you've been in touch with that group yet, but it's a collaborative of what, at least 7 or 8 organizations, MSBA and a number of them. And I would say go online and look at, for their website, look at what was passed in there. But I thought it was a really great effort to move toward this whole collaborative of organizations that deal with public education, school education, that came together to address the incident at New Prague.
Oh.
And they have some action steps that they came up with, that they're looking at some goals to be met around that.
Around the racist events that were happening in sporting events
The recent incident,
with New Prague and.
right,
Okay.
right, that's what it was doing.
Director Dallas, are you talking about POSSE, the POCE? Is that the one?
It was a resolution, I thought, that they came up with.
Yes.
This collaboration of organizations.
Yeah, for the Minnesota.
Oh, including
State
the
School.
State High School League. And
Yeah,
so, yes, I
yeah.
remember. Okay.
Yep.
Don't.
Yeah, I think MSBA sent out an alert about that.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, and AMSD had it on their agenda to deal with.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anything else? Oh, seeing nothing else, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Casey.
Second.
Second from Ms. Sarah Johansson. All in favor
Aye.
and opposed? And this meeting is adjourned.
Do the gavel, Shannon. Come on. You got the power. Do it.
There we go. I don't know, 8:09 PM.
Yeah, hey, nice
There you
job, Chair.